We're actively working towards a world where the barriers between people and policy are broken, and survivors of trauma have access to spaces for holistic healing and comprehensive education to support their mental health.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Cisneros. I am the Director of Community Development. This event falls under our empowerment pillars. As with art, we often only see the finished product and rarely the years of learning and effort put into the piece. As more and more women rightfully earn positions of power and authority globally, we see them only once they have achieved their goals. You guys hear me? Yes, okay. Through this Leaders Link Up, we hope to discuss the many unspoken challenges that come with the journey to success, with an emphasis on mental health.
We believe that through genuine and in-depth testimonials from women who have achieved success in their respective fields, that the next generation of women leaders can better prepare and understand the challenges they will face. Through these stories, we can all grow with greater understanding of how to understand, engage with, and manage our mental health.
This is about empowerment. We want to connect both women and girls who are just beginning their own journeys and those who have found solace in their own definition of personal success. A Woman's Guide to Inside Success is designed to eliminate the personal journey of success while destigmatizing the conversation and healing centered around mental health. This panel tonight is actually a part 2 of this event. We hosted a mentor group last Friday. 9 participants mentored by Sasha Renee Perez, Mayor of Alhambra, California, and Reshape Melson, Survivor and Advocacy Coordinator at Time's Up Foundation. This event included an icebreaker, mediation, mentor session, and Q&A. This session was super impactful to our young participants, and we hope this event encourages and inspires everyone as well.
So to kick us off, we're going to hear a few words of wisdom from two phenomenal women.
Hi, I'm Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez. When I think of success, personal success, sometimes it's just moving forward. We all face barriers or things that hold us back, things that affect us, and we all face failure at times. So the ability to get back up, to brush yourself off, and just take one more step forward for me is success. And I think that that's what we should just expect of ourselves. Just being able to move forward in any situation is an absolute success and something we should celebrate.
Hi, my name is Erica Cruz, and I am the founder of Purpose Driven Latina, and I am a self-discovery coach. I help women align with their purpose and live a super fulfilled life. I have a question for you. Who's the person that you talk to the most? So you might immediately think, my mom, my boyfriend, my best friend. It's actually yourself. You don't speak to anyone else more than you speak to yourself. This is why it is so important to be aware of negative self-talk. I mean, y'all, that conversation is nonstop in our head. What are you saying to yourself? Maybe it's something like, I'm not good enough. If a friend spoke to you that way, would you still talk to them? Probably not. And there's no way you would speak to a friend that way. So why is it okay for you to talk to yourself in that manner? Research shows that 80% of our thoughts are negative and 98% of our thoughts are repeated thoughts. In other words, it's much easier to have a negative thought than it is to have a positive thought. Okay, Erica, so how do we manage negative self-talk? The first step is always awareness. You can't fix something you're not aware of. So start to recognize what those repeated messages you are telling yourself are. You can do this by paying attention to your thoughts, journaling, or meditating. The next step is to challenge it. So let's say your belief is, I'm not good enough. Really ask yourself, is that true? Of course it's not true. Of course you are good enough. So start to challenge that thought. The last step is to replace the thought with a more positive one. And you can do this by using positive affirmations. Here are a few examples. I am good enough. I'm exactly where I need to be. Place those positive affirmations on a Post-it and put them everywhere. Make sure you always see them and you're constantly reminded. The last thing I want to mention is that everyone at some point has had negative thoughts about themselves. It's okay. It's normal. You've got this.
Wow, that was so empowering, and just definitely the part about this is exactly where I need to be is exactly where I need to be right now with all these empowered women and all the people that are here to support us. So with that, we can go ahead and get the panel started. And just wait for a second as they all join us back on screen. And while we're waiting, can people drop any gems or knowledge that they have about positive thoughts for themselves or some affirmations? I hear that it's super insightful and helpful. Everything is always working out for me. Yes, definitely love that. I'm inherently worthy, 100%. Okay, I think we have all of our panelists here. Oh yes, the last one, you have a purpose for being here. So thank you panelists all for coming. We have Dr. Bobbi Banks, Monique Brooks, Mayor Sasha Renee Perez, Katie Hill, and Tchen. So thank you all. Like, I'm so appreciative and love seeing so many of my mentors also on this panel too, and people that I look up to. So to get it started, what made you accept to be a panelist today? And that could be anybody. So whoever wants to go first.
I can go first. I wanted to be a panelist because I admire you, India, and all that you have gone through thus far, your strength, your tenacity, and it's just such an honor to just watch you, pull people together and to talk about subjects that are so personal and that need to be opened and talked about. And so that's why I really wanted to be a panelist.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words, of course. Anybody else want to answer? Go ahead.
I can take one. When I left Congress after being a victim of cyber exploitation, I said that I wouldn't stay silent. That was the one thing that I said for certain I was not going to do. So when I'm presented with any opportunity to speak out on issues that are uniquely impacting women, especially when it's about the stuff that isn't necessarily talked about, the stuff that it takes to be a survivor. And, I try to take them when I can. And I think that you are just doing such an incredible job of organizing around this, of bringing attention to the issue, and of peeling back those layers that, we're not always addressing, whether it's from, the way that we talk about these issues all the way through public policy. So really grateful for what you're doing. It's the same reason, it's the same motivation that I wrote my book, She Will Rise, and that I started the PAC Her Time. And it's why I'm with you today. So greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Who wants to go next? Go ahead.
Yeah, so, just following up on what everyone just mentioned, I think, Ande, what you've done here and what you've put together is just truly, truly incredible and impressive. Part of the reason why I wanted to participate in today's conversation is really because I think I genuinely needed a space like this when I was in college. I think, many survivors of trauma, certainly myself, I kind of viewed myself as damaged goods. And because of that, did not think that I was going to be able to be in a leadership position, that maybe I wasn't worthy, and that maybe the trauma that I had gone through would actually hold me back from being able to be a quality leader. And I've learned over time that it's actually exactly the opposite. And so, I'm just really grateful that you've put this together, that, young people can have an opportunity to learn from all the great leaders that are here today. This is just so, so important, especially for young women.
Thank you for sharing that.
And I just want to follow up, Mayor, that was incredible what you said, which is very much, why I said yes, which is India creating this space for young women to be able to hear messages, to raise the concerns they have, to have a safe space to share those, and voice the doubts, and try to get the support that we all want to give each other, to dispel those. So important, I think, for young women leaders to have, so that you will blossom and take over and change the world, which you all are doing already. So I was delighted to be able to come. And Kita, of course, if Kita tells me to come somewhere, I'm coming. So thank you for having me.
Ms. Monique?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I essentially said yes because your VP, Charmaine, who we affectionately call Cha-Cha, I have even shortened it to Cha, invited me to the conversation this evening. And so I would not dare say no to her. She is one of my mentees. I've known Cha since she was a little girl. And now she has blossomed into this beautiful woman, not even young lady. She is a full-blown woman. And so I love her. She has my heart. And any opportunity, because I have a heart for women, young women, that I'm able to share a part of me to encourage or influence in a positive way other women, I am going to say yes to. And so I'm just here to, I'm honored and I'm grateful to be a part of the conversation this evening.
That was beautiful. And I love hearing all of your different ambitions and purposes. And I even want to acknowledge myself that I couldn't have done this alone. Our team and the team behind me in my community, especially Nija and Jessica, are the reason that I'm able to do what I do. So having older women who I can look up to as mentors and also having my friends and community support me is how I'm able to achieve what we have done today. So it's beautiful to hear that. And I just want to make sure that everybody's getting kudos, not just me, of course. So wanted to remind folks also that for questions, please use the Q&A function. So when we get to the Q&A section, it will all be in one place. So you will see that at the bottom of your screen. Now going forward, the next question is for Katie and Sasha. So a lot of women express that they feel like an imposter or that somehow they're not meant to be where they are. We wanted to counteract this sentiment with a quote by Toni Morrison. "You are not the work that you do. You are the person you are." And so we want to ask, when did you know that being, whatever your title is what it meant to do and is what you were meant to do? So I can repeat it or you all got it.
Sasha, do you want to go? So for me, as you're talking about, and when you leave the space that says insert your title, right? I don't even know what that is right now. And I think that I've had a very unique journey in terms of how my roles have changed over time. But, I wasn't, when I ran for Congress in the first place, I had never planned to get to that point. So, I started as an activist. I started as somebody who was working in social services and trying to address the issues that I cared about. And that commitment is what led me to the next step, and which has led me to, the one after that. And so I don't think, and I really appreciated that Joe Biden said this in his speech today, or in one of the questions that he got today about whether he's going to run in 3.5 years. We don't know. There's just so much that we don't know. We might have it in our minds that this is what we want to do, or this is what we aspire to. And that is a noble and good thing. But I think that there is that quote from Toni Morrison is just so true. You cannot be identified solely as what you do, because that goes away, that changes. And ultimately you were still a person. And if you tie your entire value to what you do, what are you when that changes? Because it can occur no matter what.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we really chose you two to answer this question because you are both really young and in such a prominent space of politics and decision making. And I can only imagine like how sometimes people really perceive the title to be who you are, but it's not. You're more than just a title or whatever that may be. And so really interested to hear what you have to also say, Mayor Perez.
Yeah, so just building on that, and I first want to acknowledge by saying, Katie, I mean, you are somebody that I have admired from afar. I mean, for many years. I myself, I'm LGBTQ+, I'm bisexual, and there's very little representation when it comes to bisexual women. I mean, just in any spaces, period. And so, having you up there on the main stage, leading on progressive issues, coming out of an area that is considered to be conservative, Santa Clarita Valley. I mean, it was just phenomenal and just totally inspiring to me. And so I think the start of even imagining myself in these kinds of spaces really began with seeing women like Katie lead and realizing I can do this, right? And so, you know, I just want to begin by acknowledging that and just how amazing it is being, you know, here with you on this panel. I think beyond that, you know, the moments for me when I feel like I can do this job, this is, you know, definitely what I'm meant to do, I think is kind of the personal moments that I really have with my residents. And I think, you know, as Katie was kind of just referencing, you know, not really tying this so much to necessarily, you know, the job and not necessarily to being mayor, but really to just being a true quality person for my residents. That's what I focus on doing every single day. And, you know, I get out there and I still, you know, walk and knock doors and check in on people. And that kind of one-on-one interaction and the kind of reaction I get from residents when I do that is what lets me know that I'm doing the right kind of work. And so I think those experiences are what kind of indicate to me that, hey, I'm here, this is what I'm meant to be doing. And I love it. I love every second of the work. And for me, you know, the policy work is great, but really having that personal interaction is so, so important.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful hearing you both say that, honestly. And it's again, like, I know you two are just such inspirations to so many of us. And so beyond even just the representation, but just being vocal voices that you are, and especially being honest about your journey. I know, like Katie, you'll open up about the struggles you went through dealing with all of that. And then Mayor Perez, I heard about how the mentoring group went and how honest and candid you were. And that honesty, I think, is what's great and what's going to push everybody forward. So thank you both. We're going to move on to the third question. And this one is for Monique and Dr. Bobbi. So, how did your mental health influence your journey? Did you experience any obstacles or any traumas, if you feel comfortable sharing? And how did you overcome them?
You want me to take it? Miss Bobbi, you want to go? You want me to take it?
You got your mic on first. Go ahead. Sorry,
thank you. For me, lived experience with mental illness and the lack of mental health during a period of time in my life where it was very dark. I speak about it in my book, From a Mess to a Miracle. And at a what I now consider a very young age, having gotten married at the age of 20, thinking I knew what I was doing, and come to find out I did not. The choice that I made to move forward with that marriage, it didn't work out as I had hoped. And so with that came anxiety, came depression. And so the lived experience that I had with anxiety and depression allows me to be able to help those who I serve now. And so, but it goes back to, I had to go through a healing process first. There's no way that I could serve my community now as a certified Christian counselor and a mental health first aid coach if I had not gone through and come out better than I was when I was in. And so, although it was a very, very dark time for me, and my family as well, because, you know, when we go through things, our friends and our families, they go through them with us. And so, and it was my mother who first told me, you're depressed, you know? And so although I was in it, I didn't want to accept it for what it was, but it took her to say, no, you are depressed. And so that whole awareness that we spoke about earlier, becoming aware of where I was and accepting it for what it was, and then getting help to move past that. And I'm so grateful for the lived experience, although hard it was. But now God has positioned me to be able to help others who are also dealing with mental health challenges for themselves, no matter what the experience is, no matter if it's self-inflicted as it was from my perspective or others inflicted. I'm now able to pour into them. And at the same time, I am growing as a result of pouring into them. And so it's a beautiful thing to receive from them as I am, you know, serving them as well. So.
Wow. I just trying to just even get my words for that. And I just wanted to highlight a part where you said about how your mom was the one who identified it. And it's just interesting because culturally, like in the Black community, it's taboo to even talk about mental health. So the fact that your mother was the one who brought it to your attention is heartwarming. And it's good to know that like continuing generations in your family are going to be conscious of this mental health and being aware of what's going on with themselves. So kudos to your mom and kudos to you for being a mentor to so many other young women. Dr. Bobbi, you want to go?
Thank you, Monique. And while you were talking, I remembered an instance with mental health. I moved here from New York and a single mom, and it was, my marriage was pretty traumatic. And so in working, I work in the film industry, which is already stressful and very demanding. I was working, I thought I was doing really great. And a person that I was working with told me, you know, you're really messing up. And I really think you need some help. And I go, well, what do you mean? Because when you're in it, you think that you're doing a great job. You're not really understanding what is really happening to you mentally. And so I thought I was on top of my game. And she's like, no, you need some help. So I went to a counselor and I just poured out everything. And then I realized how stressed and how much anxiety that I really had. However, if I was not open enough to have somebody point it out to me and then actually go to a counseling session, I don't know where I would be at this point. So it is very important that you have somebody that you can bounce things off of and to really help you through some really traumatic times and be okay with it. You know, we're not perfect people. You know, we're going every single day learning new things about ourselves that need to be changed. And at this point in my life, African American, I work in the film industry, which, predominantly is not people of color. And, I have a lot of obstacles there. But I know that what I do is good. I do good work. I'm a good person. And I just push through everything, and so that's one thing that you have to really understand, that you are important, that you can do this no matter what somebody says to you, no matter how they look at you when you walk into the room. There's those silent things where, somebody will look, oh, she's, and they smile, it's like, oh, she's Black, without saying it, you know what I mean? And so you have to push past that and let them understand, hey, okay, but I can do my job. Let me show you, and then you kind of like pull them in. So it's, it's been a true journey, but I love what I do. So
that was actually the perfect segue into question number 4, which is for both you and Ms. Tina, is what was your aha moment, or when you decided to define what your own internal and personal meaning of success was?
But Bobbi, so much of what you just said was like also my life, the single mom being like, you walk in a room. I remember I was a corporate litigator. People would walk in and they're like, oh, the Asian girl's like the person who's going to take us to court. Like, really? But the personal aha moment, I have to say, and I'm not sure I've had a singular moment, right? No, I am the daughter of Chinese immigrants, which is a special meaning these last several weeks. But there was a lot of my parents' definition of success. And I think a lot of us as women internalize other people's idea, right, of what success should be, which school I should go to and how I should be and what profession. And my father was a physician, actually was a psychiatrist. And I can remember, probably the worst time was when I called him and said, oh, I got into law school. And he's like, oh, and you sort of have to, readjust. And there's that process as you grow of readjusting from other people's definition of success for you to what you might adopt. But it's an evolution. I mean, I think, and I had to say this to my kids who are now adults, but when they're in their 20s, I had the moment where I had to remind them that they're looking at the full, the me that is 65 years old today, right? not the me who was kind of a mess at 20, right, when I was the age that they were graduating from college. And that's what I would remind everybody here, you know, all the young people on, is that you're kind of looking at, for many of us, you know, the part of having gone through a lot of the journey, and a lot of it's messy. And so if that's messy for you, and if you don't know what your own definition of success is, and you're not having that aha moment, and you sort of think you need to have it, that's not necessarily the case. And it is a journey to go through. The way I've often thought, and I kind of learned to calibrate for myself as I was making different choices and decisions, was, Bobbi, you and I may be the only people who understand this reference, but I used to think of it as if old records, right? Vinyl record, when it's running, when it's playing on the record player, which is what I grew up with, the needle's either in the groove or sometimes it gets out of the groove. And I would have these moments in my life where I knew I was in the groove and it was happening, but then I started to develop a way of realizing, oh, now I'm out of the groove. Things just don't feel right. I'm just not happy. I'm not doing well. I'm feeling sort of self-doubt. And a lot of that had to do with, I wasn't really making the right choices for me. I was making somebody else's choices, or I was living somebody else's version of what I should be. And I was just out of that groove. It was that sensation of not having things being fit, and working my way back to finding what were the pieces and what were the things I needed to have fit. But it's a journey and it's a process, and it took a long time to learn what elements of pieces were that, right, that would make things fit. So it was never a singular moment, right? It's been a whole series of very small moments, I think, over the course of a lot of years, actually.
Can I actually ask a follow-up question? So what you said about your dad in the law school, a lot of young women go through that, where it's like their parents are not supportive of the decisions that they want to make. So what advice would you give to a woman who's trying to find herself, figure out what she wants to do, and realizes what she wants, but doesn't necessarily have the support of the family? So how would you navigate that space?
Yeah, it's hard, and there's no one piece of advice I can say right now that's going to work for every family, right? And every family relationship, because they're all really personal and they're all really different. But I would have to say, like that feeling of being out of sync, at some point you do have to realize, if you're making a decision and it is right for you and you've gone through it, is to sort of trust that and listen to that voice in your own head and stop listening to everybody else's voices, even if they are the voices of people who are the closest to you, like your parents. It may be hard, and there's going to be those really difficult moments and really hard conversations. But if you are true to yourself, if you can explain why you've done it, if you are respectful to each other as you do it, that you'll work your way through. It may take a while. I will say, with family, what I've tried to do, though, is always make sure at least for me, it was important to not say the very final thing. You're having an argument, you're going along, it's escalating up, and then there's that one thing in your head you could say that's going to take you guys over the cliff. And I've always tried to not go over the cliff, right? Because going over the cliff is sometimes harder to come back from. So even if it meant swallowing a little bit of where I was at, to just stop short of that moment in the cliff. But at some point, you do have to make the choices for yourself. Otherwise, you will feel out of sync. And those are the things where you're realizing you're pursuing somebody else's idea of success and what you want to do, and not your own.
Wow, thank you. That was great. Dr. Bobbi, do you want to answer?
For me, I have to sit with myself and kind of look at what I've been blessed to do and all the things that have been accomplished. And I like challenges, and I don't give up at all, easy at all, hardly ever. And so I would say, don't give up no matter what somebody says to you. I've actually been on my own since I was 17. And that's with no parents, talking to family, anything. And so there was a lot of bumps going along the way, and a lot of trials, a lot of challenges. But again, I just don't give up, and I just move forward. I had really great people that I spoke to and opened up to and really listened along the way. And so I think that's one of the things too, is to really be open to hear what others have to say, even if it's the opposite of what you think should happen in your life. I think that will help you go really far.
Thank you for both of you for being so candid and being so honest about everything. And this is definitely getting through to people, and it's getting through to me. And I'm thinking about my own life decisions that I'm going through too. So this next question is for Monique and Sasha. Is there one person that helped you on your journey that you'd love to shout out today? And how did they influence you along your journey? Oh, I think you're muted unless you're telling Mayor Perez to go.
All right, so I'll go ahead and start. Oh my goodness, it is so hard to come up with just one person. I think back on really when I began my mental health journey, back in college, and there were so many people that I think had small impacts on me that maybe didn't even realize the kind of positive impact they were having. Professors. I remember the first time I realized that I needed to go to counseling and I needed to address my trauma. And it was actually a psychology professor. Her name is Dr. Romani DeVersala. She is actually quite famous and, has had TV shows. And I mean, she was just so phenomenal in the classroom. And, she began to talk about, mental health and just the importance of going to counseling and going to talk therapy. And, at that point in my life, I had never even considered doing something like that. I grew up in a Latino household where we didn't talk about mental health. And where, frankly, counseling was something that was reserved for crazy people, right? And so she really began to kind of shift how I looked at mental health just in general. And, after that point, when I began meeting with my counselor, I mean, she just really had such a tremendous impact on my life as well. I was in counseling my entire 4 years while I was in college. And, she felt like both a good friend, a confidant, and, somebody that I felt, I could just call and let know when I was having an emergency anytime. And, to this day, I'm so grateful for all the time that I've spent with her, because it was just so much healing that I desperately needed that helped me get to this point. And I continue to kind of use those tools and strategies, that she shared with me in those sessions. So, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many people that I think have had a tremendous kind of impact on my ability to heal and really my healing journey that's still continuing.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm very relatable with the college part. I didn't discover what mental health was or even going to therapy and thinking about that until I got to UCLA. And one of my bosses was like, you need help. And that was when I really began my healing journey too. Monique?
You guys will have to forgive me because there's not just one person because several people pour into me in different ways. And so, of course, I've already mentioned her, my mom, who was the very first person who said, she brought it to my awareness, you're depressed. And so I love her for choosing my life. And I'm gonna try to do this without getting emotional, but there's my husband who, is just absolutely amazing. He himself, being a senior pastor, has allowed the opportunity for us to build a Christian counseling and mental health ministry within our church for our church community and the community as a whole. And he's leading by example. Through his studies, he's able to see where he also struggles with some mental health challenges himself. And so to be vulnerable from the pulpit is huge. And it opened the door for so many people to say, hey, I can relate. And hey, I'm hurting. Hey, I have a problem. How can I get help? And so I just, I love him for seeing the need and meeting that need. Treasures in the darkness, they know who they are. I dump on them and they love me, period. And so Belita Butler, she always, every time she sees me, she's like, walk in your purpose, walk in your purpose. And so I'm by the grace of God, I'm able to do that. and so many other people. Kay Warren, who is my spiritual my mentor in mental health, my spiritual mentor. And if I did have to pick one person, it will probably have to be God, because he is the one who knows me above anybody, and he still loves me. He forgave me, he healed me, he's still healing me moment by moment. He's restored me and he's redeemed me to be able to do what I am, what he's called me to do. It's not something I didn't say, hey, pick me, because it's, it's not easy serving people and tending to their lives and taking care of their soul. And so God above all is, I owe it all to him. So
Yeah, thank you so much. And I know this is definitely resonating with a lot of people. So again, just thank you all for your candidness. This next one is for Tina and Katie. And so we kind of already answered it. So feel free to answer the original question or one that I kind of thought of. So to help all of our audience members out, what's one piece of advice you wish you shared at the beginning of your own journey? Or, because Miss Tina, you kind of answered it a little bit earlier, what is a way that you deal with negative self-talk? How our speaker earlier, Miss Erica Cruz, spoke on that. And so either one, pick whichever one you feel most naturally and organically you can answer.
Well, I did sort of give the answer to the one piece, because it is about learning to hear your own voice. If I would say that would be the answer on that piece of advice. But so negative self-talk. So I'll tell you guys a little quick story on negative self-talk. It's from our White House days. So there was a moment fairly early on. It was probably in late 2009 or early 2010. So we're sort of kind of still early days in the Obama administration. And there was a group of us who were advising the president, actually was on the nomination of somebody for a position. And there were lots of us involved, and we're supposed to have vetted the person and, endorsed it. And we all kind of agreed on this person. He went ahead with it. And then boom, like it exploded, right? There were all sorts of issues around this person that we should have seen and actually was kind of there in the background material, but we kind of didn't. And it sort of blew up. We had to manage it, figure it out, move along. But, you never want to be the person that actually makes the president have a bad day. Well, I carried this around for weeks. Like, it just ate at me. It was like physical. It was, I let him down. It felt terrible. I like chewed myself internally about this for weeks. And then like after a month, finally, Valerie Jarrett and her chief of staff, Michael Strautmanis, haul me into Valerie's office. They sit me down and they said, you have to stop. I said, stop what? Because it's not like I talked about it. I just internalized it. And they said, it's all over your face. We all know you are still eating yourself up over this issue. Look, there were 5 men involved with you on this issue. Not a one of them thinks it's a problem. They've all moved on. Not a one of them is chewing themselves up over it a month later. You just got to let it go. And it was such a lesson, right? So you remember, this was pretty late in my career. I'm like 55 when this is happening, right? So this is not like you ever learn, you're constantly learning these lessons. And they were right. Like, I had held it. I was so self-critical. I think as women, we do this a lot, where we hold on to especially our mistakes, right? We can't let them go. We can't move past them, especially if you feel that your mistake led to someone else, right? Actually bearing the brunt of the mistake. And yet men just make mistakes, leave it go by, move right along. And it was a lesson I learned where, you just can't keep holding that for yourself. And you need to just let it go and move on. And it was important. I mean, that was like an important lesson to learn about, and also recognizing that I've been operating like that for a lot of my life, which contributed to a lot of my own, stress and my own, as a single mom raising my kids, the things you would hold on to. And that sometimes a lot of what you need to do is, move on and learn from it and then move on.
Wow, thank you. You can see the reactions from the audience, people saying I agree, they understand and feel to resonate with this. So, I mean, wow. Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny. It's not what I was originally going to say, but what you were talking about just reminded me so much of a recent experience I had. My boyfriend now is a writer, and he's working on a novel, and we were talking about it the other day, and he's like starting to put submissions together, and to go to agents and everything like that. And I'm like, are you sure you're ready? I mean, have you shown this to enough people? Do you feel like you've gotten enough feedback about this? And he's like, what the hell, man? And I'm like, I realized I think this might be my problem. And then I realized why straight white men like just skip so much that we don't, because they just do it. They think they're ready. They know it's ready. They're just going to do it. And whereas we would like sit and wait for however long until we thought it was ready enough. And that was just like the first time I saw myself being like, not just putting that onto myself, but putting that onto other people. But just really quick, the other thing that I really wish I learned earlier, and I don't know what the right way is to teach it, and there's far too much to go into now, but I wish that I learned at a much younger age how to recognize toxic behaviors with your intimate partners. Everything from gaslighting to manipulation to blaming you for things that you shouldn't be, to all of that stuff, because that was something that was there early on. And when you learn it, as for me, I got into the relationship with my ex at 16. So when you're 16 years old and you see this as normal and it just grows and grows and grows, it's very hard to break out of. And I wish that there was some way of learning that and realizing what was going on long before I did.
And that is a message that should definitely resonate with a lot of our high school girls. We see it a lot in these relationships that are only and ultimately turn into teen dating violence. And so thank you for being, very honest about that. And that is something that we had to look out for our younger generation, and my little sister included. I always worry about her, to make sure that they recognize the signs, but are also educated on the signs too. So in the essence of time, because I definitely want to get to Q&A, if everyone could say one short phrase or mantra that, they look for strength. So I'm going to go in order on the screen that I see it. So Dr. Bobbi, are you ready?
Yes. Let me see. A true sense of power is being your authentic self. That's what
Thank you. I love it. Mayor Perez?
Mine is simply, I can do this. And it's something that I just repeat to myself whenever I start telling myself that I can't do this. I just keep telling myself I can do this. I'll sometimes whisper it to myself while I'm doing my makeup. And that's how I get pumped up and just get ready to go.
Thank you. Miss Tina?
So I think especially right now in this moment in time, I've been, lately borrowing a phrase from, my old boss, and sort of that we are the change we've been waiting for, because I think this is the moment we're in and we are the change.
Thank you. Monique?
Simply, it's okay not to be okay, as long as we don't stay there. And so as women, I think we feel like we have to carry so much, and in carrying so much, we become not okay sometimes. And it's okay to recognize, accept that, and then share it with somebody else so that they can help us not, take on so much. So it's okay not to be okay as long as we don't stay there.
Yeah, thank you. And Katie?
Yeah, mine might sound a little bit negative, but it's not. And having gone through a lot of tragedy in my family, and obviously the past few years, could be worse it could always be worse is something that just has been so important for me. Like, we've had to, my mom is an ER nurse, and my dad is a police officer, and that was like a kid's book that I grew up with called Could Be Worse. And it's just like, man, there is any single situation that you can find where it could be worse. Like if you're still here breathing, then there's a way that it could be worse. So I guess it's kind of like a take the blessings where you can, and find the positives where you can, even though it feels like exhausting. And sometimes just you can't see any of it. But that one, man, I've leaned heavily on that.
Okay, wow, thank you. So we're only gonna have time for probably a couple Q&A, but the first one's a little bit of a mouthful, so bear with me for a bit. But this is definitely directed at Dr. Bobbi and Mayor Perez. So how do your respective industries/careers intersect to help promote conversations around mental health for other women in your field? I can repeat it if you need me to.
Currently, I happen to be on a lot of committees that are starting that conversation. We unfortunately lately have had quite a number of people that have committed suicide in our industry because of all the stress and other things. And so because of that, I think the conversations have started happening, and we've had some panel discussions, and we've started to go to high school and junior high to start having conversations with the kids. So that's what we've started doing.
Thank you.
For me, in the city of Alhambra, we're in a relatively small city, which means that we have a bit of a smaller budget. We have right under about 100,000 people. And, I think part of how I've been approaching this issue has been particularly engaging with our youth. I have my youth commissioners. I also have my interns there watching as participants on this call. And some of the ideas that they've come up with is for us to host a youth convening in the city of Alhambra, the first time we would ever host one in the city's history, and to really begin having these discussions about mental health. I think especially for all those that are watching that are students, or just anyone, to be frank, this has been a really challenging time. And I really, really feel for our young people because school has turned into, Zoom school now. You're missing out on a lot of that in-person interaction. And I know that oftentimes it can feel very isolating. During the campaign, I had many students that were reaching out to me just, seeking advice on how they could deal with their own anxiety, their own depression, who were going through this for the first time. And so I think that these are conversations we need to start having now. And on top of that, I also think that in many ways, because of the pandemic, the role that we have as city leaders has kind of begun to shift a little bit, right? Before, you thought about, somebody in my position, and you think Parks and Rec and, police departments and fire departments. But now, we're taking on bigger issues like providing direct assistance for things like food, housing. And, I think our next step is really to get into these mental health conversations. And so that's what I'm looking at. And, I encourage the other folks that are listening to this call, reach out to your council members and your local electeds and let them know that this is a priority issue to you, and that you would like them to lead in identifying resources and bringing in speakers to your community.
Wow, thank you so much for that. And so this next one is actually directed at Katie and Tina. And so I want to also acknowledge that Monique, you actually answered this one earlier with talking about Cha-Cha. So do you all have mentees, and how do you pour into them?
I've had a lot of mentees over the years. Honestly, too many to count. And they shift with what you need in life, I think. And they're people that you continue to be in touch with over the years. I don't know. They've become my closest friends, and I feel like when you need them, but being in tune with that is important, and being willing to be the one who reaches out. Like, I think that it takes an effort to maintain that is kind of on your incumbent to do if you're the mentee. I'm sorry, you said mentors, right?
Well, if you have any mentees, but
I'm sorry. Okay, well, yes, that too, but both ways.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, yeah, I think that the ongoing contact is something that matters, and that relationship, lasts. It's like an indelible bond.
Thank you. Ms. Tina?
Yeah, I've had, and I think I've been part of formal mentor-mentee programs, but I think some of the most effective ones are just those things that happen informally, as you're working together. I always tried to have an open door policy, where whenever I've worked, and certainly when I've been the manager of a team, is to making sure, anyone can come in whenever they need to, and then afterwards, so one of the things I do feel strongly about in my own time and committed to, and it causes my assistants some fits sometimes, but any person, and it happened, there's not a very extended Obama family between the campaign and the administration. There is, for people from my former law firms, people, now from organizations that I've worked with, anyone who actually ever reaches out to me, I did 2 of them today, wants to talk about their career or, advice. I make the time, even for folks I don't know well, because I do feel like that's an important thing at this stage in my life. I've been blessed, I think, as Bobbi, as you said, with a lot of good fortune in my life, a lot of great, breaks, just being in the right place at the right time moments that made my career, a lot of luck that happened. And one of the things I feel like is on me now to do is anybody who does reach out for that kind of, what I can provide by way of advice or encouragement, it's something, there's always time to do that. And so it's something I try very hard to make sure we carve out time in my schedule to be able to do.
And coming from someone who has a ton of mentors, I can even count them on both hands. We are incredibly grateful for that. And I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have wonderful leaders like you all guiding me along the way. And I'm a part of a program called Emerge, which has over 65 women who I now consider my mentors as well, and the others who've already graduated. And so it's beautiful seeing all of this diverse panel and all these words of wisdom. And I really thank you all. We had a ton of more Q&A questions, but unfortunately with time, we're gonna have to stop there with that. But I do ask that everybody sticks around for the next couple more minutes as we close out with 2 more featured speakers real briefly, and then closing words from Kita for a campaign that Time's Up is having. But again, thank you, panelists. You all were amazing. You were so candid and open and organically and honest. And I love and appreciate that. So thank you all for being here for that. So let's go ahead and transition to the next one. Thank you. Welcome back, Nija. Oh no, she left again. Okay, they should be back on in a couple of seconds, and then we'll show the last 2 speakers and close out with Time's Up. So just hold tight, please. Welcome back. All right, go ahead.
Hey, everyone. Okay.
Nija, we can't hear. You may want to reshare.
Yeah, or Kita, if you have it, do you mind playing it?
Sure.
Thank you, everybody, for being patient while we work through this real quick. Can't have an event without some technical difficulty.
Yeah, let's see if Nija's works again. Oh. Let me try to find it.
While we're waiting, can people drop in the chat what was their favorite part so far today? Let's see. I see that this was absolutely great. All the go-to phrases and gems. Let's see what else.
Okay, I'm going to try to share.
Oh, I see more great advice. So insightful. Oh, yes, the openness. I love the openness of everybody. Like, oh, and the discussion on mental health, of course, I'm seeing that. Some other thoughts? Oh, yes. Tina with her experiences from the White House. That's so amazing.
I'm going to try to play it if everyone can see my screen.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Tamara Moore. I am first and foremost a woman of African American descent. I am a mother of 3 beautiful daughters, and I am an educator in the Fairfield-Sassoon Unified School District, where I teach high school to primarily 11th and 12th graders right now, teaching AP biology as well as anatomy physiology. I've always had a passion for science, even as a young girl. And then I went on to pursue that career working in public health and then becoming a teacher. To address the question on what's your greatest takeaway from your healing journey. And to be completely transparent, that journey is never ending. We're always healing from something, whether it be something that you dealt with a long time ago, 20 years ago, that is still affecting you, or something that just happened recently. And one of the things that I try to do in my healing journey that I have found to be helpful is to look at the road ahead and what I need to do to make my life a better situation. How I dealt with that situation in the past, and how I'm going to make myself a better person from it. Because you can't change what you did in the past or change what happened to you in the past or the mistakes you made in the past, but you can heal from it by doing better, by being better.
Hi, everybody. My name is Vanessa Warri. I'm a current MSW PhD at the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs in their social welfare department. I am a longtime community activist, advocate, strategist, committed to doing my part in our collective movement for liberation. And I am so honored to be here sharing space and words with you today. One recommendation that I will make regarding mental health: it is so important to take your time, and it is so important to take your rest. In professionalism, in our careers, in the work, rest isn't something that is really valued yet. So it's really on us as individuals and professionals to take up that radical act of self-care and make time for yourself, because you'll find that if you make time for yourself, you are setting yourself up for sustainability and longevity along your professional track. And that's what you want. You don't want to get burnt out, and you want to try your best to hang in there as long as possible.
Well, thank you. That was super great. And so, I mean, Jessica, you want to go ahead and close us out with Ms. Kita?
Absolutely. I know you are all very sad that this event is coming to an end, but don't be too sad. We have more events coming up. If you follow us on our social, if you go to our website, yellowheartcommittee.org, you can follow us on our social media accounts to keep up to date with everything that's going on, all the events that we have coming up. As a matter of fact, we have another one coming up next month. It's the Racial Healing event with Richmond City Youth Council. So again, to keep up to date with us, follow us on our website and social media accounts. Thank you all for joining.
And then before you go, Ms. Kita has one last thing to say.
Yeah. Hi, all. I'm Kita. I work at Time's Up as a manager of advocacy, and super happy to pair with Yellow Heart Committee on this event. One of the things that I think would be perfect to mention here is something that Time's Up is working on. We are launching a new program called We As Ourselves. I'm dropping a link to the website here. And the need for We As Ourselves emerged through the backlash, silencing, and treatment that we have seen directed at Black survivors. So we're coming together to build a better support network for Black survivors. And we will launch it at the end of Black History Month and into Women's History Month as an awareness and cultural change effort to address these critical intersections for Black survivors of sexual violence. As partners on this work, Me Too, the National Women's Law Center, and Time's Up have shaped this project to do three critical things, which is create the cultural conditions that allow Black survivors to safely tell their stories, so important, build community and support for Black survivors, and upend the harmful cultural narratives that perpetuate sexual violence against Black women and girls. So this work is really about starting the conversation by placing this discussion on national stage to ignite real nuanced discussion about sexual violence at kitchen tables, at church basements, and at community gatherings where we need to address, support, and grapple with the experiences of Black survivors. So up next is an event series where we will move the pledge to show support, a show in support for Black survivors, into action by having the hard conversations, very similar to what you saw today with the Yellow Heart Committee. Our first conversation of our event series is called The Collective Power of Black Women to Reshape the Narrative About Sexual Violence, which will focus on how Black women show up for one another, the work of fighting back harmful narratives about Black survivors, and what joy and hope looks like in the effort to ensure that Black survivors own their stories. So check that website and look out for an announcement of our series in the next couple of weeks. And then this first one's going to air on April 7th. I thought it was a perfect thing to mention, since it's really encouraging and beautiful to see amazing women of color leading Yellow Heart Committee and sharing their stories. So Time's Up has been super happy to work with all of you, super grateful. India, Nija, Jessica, lovely to work with you. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. I love this event. I love the speakers. And like we said, follow us on social media so you can keep up with all these amazing events that we hold. So have a wonderful night, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in.